Greetings and welcome to Georgian Crossroads. This is Byrne, and you know what? We're in the middle of this global pandemic of the Wuhan virus, COVID-19. I prefer Wuhan virus because we've always named viruses after places. And I suspect that the push to name it this like really abstract thing, COVID-19, actually comes from a Chinese source to not blame them for this. But that's politics. I don't care. Call it what you wish. But the point is this. Here in Tbilisi, where are we now? It's March 30th, 2020. And yesterday I walked down the street, Rustaveli Avenue, one of the busiest streets in Tbilisi. And I walked 20 minutes and maybe saw 15 people. I turned off and saw a few more people sitting in a park. But it is eerily calm out there. And everyone is just hunkering down, waiting for something. I think this isn't going to last as long here as it's going to last back home in America. So I'll mention a little bit more of that at the end. Yeah, it's interesting walking past the opera, the ballet, the Palishvili Opera House, and they've just taken down the posters for coming events because no one knows when the next event is coming. I went to the Carrefour. There are several of them here, but there's a good-sized one down near Liberty Square. And now there's a protocol that goes like this. You enter. This was funny. They gave me like a squirt bottle, and so I cleaned my hands. That's nice of them. Then they gave me gloves while my hands were still wet. And these are like these super thin plastic gloves that are used for, touching food and such. So I had to wait and get my hands dry before I put the gloves on. Fortunately, now they've got the cart on the other side. Any cart you want is on the other side of that, so that makes sense. There was another store yesterday where I picked up the little cart, and then they gave me gloves, which kind of seems backwards, but you're finding the same thing when you go through the cashiers now, the checkout. They've got big plexiglass, plastic kind of stuff between you and them so you don't breathe on them. And they're all wearing masks and stuff. I'm not, because being an American, I know how to stand away from people. And I notice the Georgians just don't really get it. That is, they're certainly not all using the 2 meter rule, which is about 6 feet, 2 yards. And they're not all doing that, although there's weird little spots in line where it's like there's a blue dot you're supposed to stand on, another blue dot, and another blue dot, and they're each like 2 meters away, so you're supposed to it's very weird, very, very weird. Interestingly enough, at Carrefour, they're running, I wouldn't say they're running out of produce, but they've got about half as much as they used to have. Now, I get a lot of my produce from a local woman who has a little marketee. I can't quite do it properly in Georgian. Marketee. But her name is Irene, or Ira, and she's staying afloat and doing everything. In fact, she's doing good business because a lot of people don't feel like going all the way to the bigger stores. And my feeling is, as long as she has stuff, I'm good. Because, and she goes to the big bazaar where they sell it wholesale over by the train station. And I'm stocked up. I've been stocked up for a while. I've got about, I figured out at the beginning of this I had about 3 months worth of food. I started stocking up back in early first week of February. I said, better make sure I have enough, and it has come in handy. So here's a few condiments and things here. This is just this, but I've got more. The refrigerator's full, the freezer's full, the other cupboards are full, and I've got enough tea to last over a year. I figure if I got enough tea to last over a year, I'll be good. So let's see. One thing though I am running out of, and that's matches, because they sell these little things. I've got about 2 boxes of these left. I went to look for them in Carrefour yesterday. Usually they have lots of these, and they were gone. So now one of my goals today is to go look for matches. So that's where I am right now in my preparations for this pandemic. And it's a strange life. I did see some friends yesterday, had dinner with them, the American friends who are here. I've seen other people off and on, but very sporadically. It's strange. It's like everybody's living in this isolated town next to all the people they know, but they can't see them. It's very strange. The point of this video is to go back about a year to April of 2019, to a point when I was having quite a few problems with electricity and even water in the apartment I'm in. And the point of this is basically to say, well, what if things get really crazy? Well, if things get really crazy, we have problems with things like electricity and water. And what that means is we have to really reconsider things. I don't think we're basically going to be having those problems unless there's civil unrest, which, for instance, has been happening in Sicily, in Italy, as I speak, over the issues related to the Wuhan virus. So what I am going to do is take a trip back in time. I actually recorded this video back then thinking, this could be interesting to deal with it. But let's go back in time. What we're also going to deal with is the life that Georgians lived, and they spent a lot of time without regular electricity. And you know what I learned from all of this? If you don't have electricity, you spend a lot of time preserving food. Hopefully. Let's go back in time. So today what we're going to do is we're going to cover an aspect of living here in Tbilisi, Georgia, which is one of the crazier aspects, not at all uncommon. You ask anyone who lives here, they will have you tell you endless stories about life without things like water and electricity. I'm shooting this today probably a month or two ahead of when I'm actually going to air this, simply because this is the perfect time. Now, I've been living here for 4 or 5 months, and I would say within that time, I would say every other week, at least for anywhere from 5 minutes to 2 hours, or 4 hours or 5 hours, either the electricity or the water will be turned off. I'm not sure why. Sometimes it's the whole block. In this case, it's not the whole block. It's just me. And the reason it's just me is because I forgot to pay my bill. But I didn't forget. I'm not sure when to pay it. So, and the bill was only like 22 lari. If 1 lari at the moment equals about, I don't know, it translates into about $8. It's not much. I could have easily paid it, but it slipped my mind. So I come in yesterday, and there's a guy down here who is turning off something. I thought, oh, how strange. In order to take the meter reading, he has to turn off the electricity. Wow, that's backwards. Well, little did I know. It wasn't that he was turning off the meter for meter reading. It's that they don't give you a notice. I have no idea how to even communicate with these people. I just have a little, 7-digit code or something that I take down, punch it into the pay station, and I pay. And I can check online to see how much I owe. But it's kind of strange. So, so anyway. So yesterday I came back, and I'm facing an entire day without any electricity, because they're not going to, back in America, if you don't pay your bill and you want to pay it on, you pay a little extra money, they flip it on. Here, I don't think you have to pay a little extra money. You just have to wait 24 hours for them to remember to come back and find your place. They haven't remembered me yet. So, Then when I came home yesterday, I was without water for an hour or so. It was like the perfect storm. Plus, my computer died. We won't get into that. And one thing I should discuss is what happened at the end of the 90s and all the way through the aughts, even into the beginning of the teens. Tbilisi had a lot of problems with electricity, and there were many reasons for this. I actually saw a very interesting documentary on the subject. I tried to find it. I've got a few images here that you're looking at. I tried to find that particular documentary to show it to you. It was with English subtitles. It was actually made by an American electric company that was trying to help out Tbilisi. They were doing it to say, look what this American company is doing, but what they showed instead is the chaos of the electrical system here. And sometimes, I mean, the wiring here, if you know anything about electricity, or you think you know how electrical service works, is just looking at the telephone poles around here with wiring on them. It's just, you look at that and you go like, how in the world does that work? I have no idea. And the other thing is interesting, that Georgians lived that way for off and on for years. I mean, and it made me realize, going through this whole ordeal, that this mini ordeal I did, interestingly enough, they never came to turn my electricity on. Nobody ever actually showed up. What happened instead was that you see this box with the meters on it, and there's a lock at the bottom. And that was actually cracked open, and it's actually pretty easy to knock open and get in there. So I eventually turned my own electricity back on. But no one ever came. And it's just, I have no words for it. It's pretty funny. And what's funny is I just got the landlords to provide me with a new refrigerator. A wondrous day. And the old one, let me show you the old one. So the old one looks like this. If you look really closely, you can see the rust marks on it. The entire refrigerator is filled with rusty, I don't know if you can even see this. I have no extra electricity. But anyway, it was dying. And if I had the electricity going, I could plug it in and let you hear the obscenely loud hum. So what do you do? So I just yesterday bought meat and eggs and other things that I was going to try to keep warm in my new refrigerator, which has now been going for almost 24 hours without any electricity. Well, here are some tips. You have cold water. Inside the cold water, it's actually pretty cold water. So what you can do, keep it running long enough. I've got my milk in here. And what I'm doing is keeping my milk cold by doing that. And get a little more life out of it, because the water there is cold enough to keep the milk at a good temperature. Okay, inside here, I've kept the things that don't particularly need refrigeration. Bottles of sauces, and yesterday what I did was I cooked up cabbage, and then while it was still really warm, put it in cold water to air seal it into these jars. And I did the same with some beef that I had so it wouldn't spoil. But what about the stuff I'm really worried about? Well, it's up here. There is still some coolness. Up here is stuff that should be cool. Well, vinegar doesn't need to be up here, nor does this bottle of water need to be up here. But you know what they're both doing here? They are helping things to stay cool. And in fact, I took a piece of meat yesterday that was partially frozen. This morning, it was still partially frozen. Put it in here, and I'm soaking it in soy sauce, and kind of actually a teriyaki type marinade. And then I've got other things. There's cheese in here. That's not going to be a crime. The biggest problems are going to be the eggs and the meat. And so what I've done is I've put jars of cold water in here just so that I can keep, the cold water will help keep the temperature of this little chamber cool. So it's just a strange way of living. Okay, here's a thing you can do. Take glass. I suggest glass, not plastic, and fill it with the coldest water you can get out of your tap. And then, and use glass, not plastic, because glass really conducts temperature. Plastic doesn't. You can try this yourself. Pick up a bottle in your refrigerator. Pick up a glass bottle versus a plastic bottle. Which one feels colder? Well, the glass does. So then what you can do is fill that thing full of nice cool water. Make sure you get a lid on it. And then what you can do is put it in here for one more coolant for your now refrigerator, which used to be your freezer. So if worse comes to worse, I could fill my bathtub full of cold water and put cold things in there. Another important thing you will need when the electricity goes out, have a steady supply of these if you come here. Especially if you're going to spend any time here. If you're just visiting, it doesn't matter. Spend a week or two, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to be spending months here, these can come in handy. They're called candles. They come in different colors. I bought a box of 20 for about, oh jeepers, I spent maybe 20 lari. Sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? Less than $10. The Georgians lived like this throughout the 90s and the aughts. That's the name of the last decade, by the way. And so as a result, they don't really bat an eye when they lose electrical power. They don't think like, oh my goodness, I'm out of electrical power. They just kind of like, okay, we're doing this again. Now, this is Byrne, coming from the future again. This is almost, you may notice this video, you know, I filmed this, I think it was last April or so. When I ran out of electricity. Things have actually been better since then. We haven't had so many electrical or water problems since then. But my solution to the problem has been to always leave, at least there are 3 of these, in the freezer at all times. And these are full plastic water bottles of water. So that if, in the event of the electricity going down, I've got at least a day or two, a couple of days worth of very cold temperatures. The weird thing here is you cannot find what you would find in America everywhere, and that's coolers. I mean, in America, it's like every store has styrofoam coolers, which aren't so good. But I like the big plastic ones because you can really keep things cold in there. Well, I've never seen any here. They may exist somewhere, but I've just never seen them. I guess people don't take those kind of long driving trips the way Americans do. Oh, one of the things I wanted to say, you know, I made a point of showing you how I was marinating meat and stuff. I got really sick on that because I did it wrong. And what I should have done is marinated the meat and then immediately cooked it. Instead, I waited another day, and that was a big mistake. My cats, all the cats in the neighborhood were really happy with me, though, because I didn't throw it all away. I gave it to them because they don't register problems the same way we do as far as bacteria and germs and stuff. The thing I have to watch out for is if I leave and they turn the freezer on while I'm gone, I do have to leave. So I'm getting ready to think about how to do that. Will they even remember to turn on my electricity today? That is the big question. And so as I wait for the individual to make his rounds and come back and unlock my electrical box and turn me back on, I am forced to live a new sort of existence. Not bad. You can live this way. I still have a little bitty dumb phone. I'm communicating with somebody. I'm living in Georgia. Thanks. Well, this is Byrne saying, as bad as things get, one thing that the Georgians have shown me is how to deal with adversity. And they handle it with a lot of grace. I think back in America and in other places, they're evidently having problems, real problems with just civil control in Italy. And I think there will be more places that have those kinds of issues. The Georgians have gone through real hardship. And between the year 1991 and 2008, they went through a civil war, political chaos, extreme poverty, periods with no electricity and erratic water supply, and a 5-day war with Russia. That's a lot of hardship to go through. And we in America have never gone through that kind of thing in recent times. So we have to go back to the Great Depression to find anything even begins to be comparable. So what's happened instead is that Americans have grown really cozy with all of our conveniences, and we panic when we don't have them. I think that kind of explains the toilet paper problem. Or as I explained to someone I know from France, in America, in France, I remember once having great difficulty finding a good working toilet. I mean, and I'm talking about going to 5, 6, 7 places over a number of days and finding just some of the most bizarre, weird, almost lewd accommodations. And I realized at that point that Americans, the French care about food on the way in. Americans care about food on the way out. French don't care about it on the way out. Americans are a lot less, a lot of Americans, not all, but a lot of Americans don't care about it that much on the way in, except that it's filling and fattening and tastes good, Basically, I don't know how long this pandemic is going to last, nor what it will produce, particularly economically. We could be on the verge of some very serious disruptions to our lives. I think we in Georgia will get back to relative normality much sooner than happens back in the States. I think America and Western Europe have a lot of trials still ahead of them, and I wish everyone well, and I wish everyone health. Meanwhile, learn from the Georgians to take these things with grace and not to panic, not to give in to your fears. We have to learn to live with each other. It doesn't matter if they have different political thoughts. We have to learn to live together. So this is Byrne from Georgia saying, Kagad Ikavi, which means be well.